All right. Well, it's another good night. Another got finally enough people in the crew. There was actually a point at which we were not sure if we had enough work for the people we had on shift. But there's always something to do in a full kitchen. Always something more to do. So, Trump beat the Nazis. That's the best irony of all ironies, and that everybody who dislikes Trump, and especially who claims to be some kind of anti-fascist of some sort, the best part about it is how they ended up failing so miserably in so many ways to kind of get what they want, which really is, like, say, Brexit. Brexit was one of these things that a lot of people don't know Parliament was addressed on because they were being warned about staying in the European Union. Because they were warned that most of the people who actually planned the European Union were Nazis or funders and supporters of various fascist parties during World War II. So most of the people who were actually down with staying in the EU, who were like sort of entrenched party members, these lords, things like that, what these people were doing is they were really supporting an effort for corporatist control, complete and total corporatist control of Britain. This is why there's the lockdowns. The lockdowns are literally the communist fascist thing. It's the total controllers of society type of people doing what comes quite naturally to them. They're trying to control all of society. But so one of the things about the whole issue within the EU is, and then we get like all the deep staters. Deep state is another thing that many of us have learned. Yeah, without people who are fundamentally supporters of the fascist regime in Germany during World War II, you wouldn't have, one, the CIA at all. Like, you wouldn't have the Pentagon whatsoever. But then beyond that, you wouldn't have the Bush family. And the Bush family co-opting the Republican Party, mostly with the help of Kissinger during the Nixon administration. And so this is the reason why Kissinger ends up staying around, but Nixon goes down in flames, is because really Kissinger was in on it. And a lot of people would be like, but Kissinger is Jewish. And it's like, yes, a lot of people don't get that there were lots of fascist Jews. It was an ideology that just is simply corporatist in nature and controlling. It is not inherently something that has something to do with eliminating whole racial groups. That was something unique to Germany. So Trump making fundamentally the kind of the white nationalist end of the alt-right, he disarmed them in many ways. His supporters, and in a lot of what he was doing, disarmed them, to the point that eventually Richard Spencer ended up having to support ended up supporting Joe Biden for president. And if I understand correctly, he is still a supporter of Joe Biden as president. So the guy who's the notorious Nazi likes Joe Biden. Joe Biden himself had all the stuff he was doing in Ukraine. A big part of this was that the Ukrainian junta was heavily involved in neo-Nazi, anti-civilian death squads. So when it really comes down to it, Trump beat the shit out of fundamentally generational Nazism. And then the people who really support it, when it comes down to actually controlling all of society and handing it over to corporations, are the people who don't like him. The anti-Trumpers are who end up being the people who go out of their way to hand the control of society to a bunch of major corporations. In my view, this was one of these ironies missed by so many people, and I'll never stop laughing behind my sleeve. Ooh, got boogers. I'll never stop laughing behind my sleeve at it. Never stop laughing about it. And it'll always be true. This is the beautiful thing about the socialists. They're just know-it-alls and relatively quasi-competent, or sometimes totally dysfunctional and delusional people that just want control of society because they think they should have control of society. They think everyone should listen to them. Like Hassan Piker, and thinks everybody, that society should listen to him because, he successfully at some point dated a prostitute. And now some people, I guess, would call her a porn actress, but I mean, whatever, whatever, semantics. That people should listen to Vaush and do what he says because, he's a very, very ugly man who is very poorly shapen. No man wants to be like Vaush in almost any way. And that he must consistently and constantly make things up to actually keep the money flowing in. And then he's just a hustler. He's just a typical bourgeois class hustler who is just hustling people who were poorly socialized or even more fucked up than he is. So, to think about how, like, a lot of people don't get that, say, Merkel, who appears to have been possibly a Stasi, a cadet for the Stasi, that by the end of it, what it is that these are not ideologies that oppose one another, really. That's one of the most important things, is that the left doesn't really get. Like, no, the communists and the fascists at some point both agree on a lot of things having to do with socialism itself. Like, they don't really think that individual freedom of choice is important. This has been now overwhelmingly shown by people who are left of center. People left of center overwhelmingly, and to the point where they're dedicated to the idea of really your individual rights not only don't matter, it doesn't matter if you can prove your case and that you're correct. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you do what great leader tells us, and what matters is that you do what the corporate people tell you, and that most importantly you do, whether what might, there might be things that end up hurting people. No, none of that matters. None of that matters. And really the political left has made it. There is no more argument for why abortion should be ever thought of as a right. The argument's gone. They have no argument now. They don't have an argument. Their own behavior has shown that really, no, women don't have an individual right. There isn't some overwhelming, amazing, individual, super great, awesome right that women have. No, they don't. Actually, in fact, they don't. That's never been. There is no such thing as a right to abortion. There is no such thing. And the beauty of this is now it's like, and you all have argued that for any women whimsy, that any concept of a right can be denied. So no, the illegal immigrants obviously don't have a right to live here. What are you talking about? What right? What rights? What rights? What are you talking about? And that's the beauty now, is for those of us who are right of center, because the people right of center, remember, there's people who, they're like, by principle, I can't argue for a republic. On the principle of it, I can't argue for a republic. Like Jay Dyer at one point got into this when he was interviewing that Muslim. And then he got into neither Islam nor Christianity technically can acknowledge sort of the supremacy of the idea of universal suffrage, a republic, individual rights. Like, that can't be argued from the Christian point of view. Like, it takes a humongous stretch to do that. It's a huge stretch to make that argument. That, yeah, you have to become Protestant. You have to actually start just inventing things, inventing theological concepts. So that was something that I started thinking about, and I was just like thinking about, the Catholics who supported fascism, how we hid so many Catholics, hid Nazis in their ranks, in the priesthoods of various countries. People like Adenauer and Globka, who lived afterward and constructed the EU and all that, and that you, like, liberals loved your, like, I mean it, 80s through 2000s in Europe. No, liberals love the central governing wonder of the EU. There's nothing I've realized more than shit libs love fascism. Oh, I see. That's what's going on up there. Okay. Yeah, liberals, the shit libs love a central government that they must obey. This is really, to a great extent, their dream. To a great extent, the world that they dream of is a world where there's a central governing power that just tells people what to do. And and as long as it's acceptable in appearance to them, as long as it appears diverse and all that kind of business. So this is and really then it because there's shit libs, it really does then say what this means is that this is the female vote at its essence. At its essence, the female vote loves the idea of a dictator telling them what to do as long as they could have abortions. As long as they could have welfare, get handed money, and have abortions. Nothing else really matters. So, yeah, it was just some thoughts I was having. Yeah, I'm going to heat up some food, watch a few things, get my login rewards, and boom, there we go.